Hi, Neil McDonnell here from the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to go through this session. It's a video for the YouTube folks, an audio for podcasts. Talk about that in a minute, but I'm going to go through a strategic plan and how I break it down. I drop a lot of these strategic plans out there to industry with the hope that you'll be able to find them faster and then have some actionable information coming out of it. Many people aren't quite as familiar on how to look at a strategic plan, how to find things of value, and create a set of action items or next steps after you review a strategic plan. So I'm going to go through that. Today's session, we're going to go over the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Intelligence and Analysis, their 2020 to 2024 strategic plan. So a 5-year strategic plan. This one's pretty fortunate in that it just dropped, I think, January 2020. But it doesn't matter if the strategic plan is 2 or 3 years old, because it goes out often 5 years. And very often, these are long-range goals, and so you really can get an understanding. One housekeeping thing about this session is being recorded both for audio, so I'll put it in the podcast. And the reason I say that is for you who are listening to it as a podcast, if you want to watch the video, you just go over to YouTube, and I'll post it there as well. And inside of there, you'll obviously hear what you're hearing, but you get to see me going through the plan, the pages. I think there's 32 pages in this document. And then also go on LinkedIn. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my primary social media platform. But inside of there, I put the strategic plan as a PDF document so that you can quickly download it. You can also see a little summary write-up I did in that. Feel free to share this. It's really important to me. When we put out content, it's going to everybody. Okay, so let's talk about strategic plans really quick before we dive into this one. The reason I like strategic plans is it tells me two main things, right? It tells me the challenges an agency might be having, or like this office, the challenges they're facing, or the challenges they're trying to address. So in this case, they're not necessarily talking about challenges to this office, but they're talking about challenges to national security and how they're going to deal with it. So that's one thing you'll see in a strategic plan. The second thing, and my favorite, are a set of goals. They'll lay out 3 to 5 major goals, and inside of those, you might see 5 or 10 strategic objectives. That's really important to know, because you can't sell to every agency, and you can't sell within every agency. You can't sell to every objective they have. But when you look in and you see a particular goal and a set of objectives that match up to you, you can start tying your message back to that objective and goals. And so you'll see that a lot in here. This strategic plan is one of my favorite ones. It's really laid out nicely, and it teaches you a lot about the office. That's perfect for people who are trying to understand this particular office. We hear from the government officials that you need to be doing your homework before you talk to them. Understand their challenges, understand their goals, but most importantly, understand what it is they do. Inside of this strategic plan from INA, which is their acronym, they lay out clearly what that is. Okay, and then, so let me just get started. I'm gonna flip to the next page here. The first section, and you see on the right-hand side, I've got some notes that pop up. These are notes, reminder to me of what I want to talk to you about. I'm not trying to do some sort of polished thing. I'm trying to give you pure content of what I do. So here you've got the CIO, so the intelligence officer, by the way. That's a different CIO than most of us are used to. But the chief intelligence officer here is laying out, their strategic, their opening letter, their executive summary, if you will, to the document. And I look in here because it's really important for me to find some basic things like this first, and I highlighted through, so you don't have to read everything, go download the document and see it. But again, reminder, I'm teaching you how I analyze this, not so much telling you about this strategic plan. I'm using this one as an example. So in this letter, these undersecretaries or whoever's putting this out tend to have a good little nugget or two in there that you can grab. So the first one I say is, in his letter, it says, this document provides a holistic approach that will guide the continued evolution of the office over the next 5 years. Well, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for, is a holistic approach. And it's important for us to understand that they're using it as a guide. And then the second paragraph has something that I, again, really like. It lays out that this strategy outlines a forward-leaning approach to provide dominant capabilities and anticipatory intelligence. And so when you dive deeper into the document, you start learning about the counterintelligence or the counterterrorism, et cetera, the other mission elements that they have in this office, you'll see what they're talking about. And the reason I like pulling these lines out is because I figure out how can I integrate that into my marketing material? Or if I'm writing a response, how do I integrate some of what David is saying here? And I'm just calling by his first name since I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But how do I integrate some of that in there to show the folks who are reading my marketing material, my responses, that I am understanding what you're doing. I do understand your priorities, and I'm going to talk about my solution. But first, I'm talking about you, the agency. Where do you come from? What are your challenges? And then the third thing on this page that I liked, and so I only found 3 things on here. That's why you see 3 things highlighted that I wanted to move forward. The rest of what he wrote is great, but I read a lot of these, and so I see a common theme. But the third thing they wrote in this letter is the threat environment is never static, thus I&A will remain dynamic. And this is hugely important for me. Like I saw that, I went, that's exactly, if I was in this space, right, what I want to be communicating, that we as an organization are dynamic because we understand that the threat environment is not standing still. It's constantly changing. We always know it's moving, but when you think you're moving in the right direction, it switches over here. So that's really important for me to be able to communicate back to them that I'm playing at the same speed you're playing at. In the intelligence side, it's vital that you move at a very fast speed. No disrespect to the forestry industry, DOI, for example, but they might move at a little less sense of urgency than Homeland Security, and in particular, the Intelligence and Analysis Office. Okay, so that's the opening letter and what I got out of that. Let me go to the next page here. So the next page that we go into, this is the, I think, 4th page if you're following along in the document. But this one, they're showing their operating principles. And these operating principles, it's funny, the words that are that are highlighted are not actually helpful to me. This was an unusual thing. But so I highlighted for you what they were really trying to say in each paragraph. That is their operating principles. And again, I'm not trying to rephrase it for them. I'm trying to rephrase it for myself to understand, what are you saying here? What are you saying here? So let's look at the first one. The first one is foster. I mean, for those of you who are listening audio only, there's a lot of writing. I'm just highlighting the part in each paragraph that matters to me. So foster a fully synchronized, cohesive enterprise that integrates intelligence into operational functions. And so as I look at that, I'm like, all right, I want to be able to communicate back how what we do can help them integrate intelligence into the operational functions, right? If you're in construction or IT, this isn't your space, and so it might be a little bit out. But if you looked at a construction strategic document for U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and what they're building out, you would see similar operating principles that you could begin to tie to. So in this case, the people who are in the intelligence world will understand a lot of this. So the second one coming across the top is drive multi-directional information exchanges. Again, really good thing that pops out to me. I'm like, ooh, that's a good phrase, right? Multi-directional information exchanges. So it's going many different ways, or omni-channel, right? It's going many different directions. And for information exchanges. And as you learn more about their the mission of DHS's intelligence side, they interact with many different entities, state, local, federal agencies on intelligence. These guys are the only ones with a mission specific to sharing across all stakeholders. And we'll see that more. I know it's farther down. Okay, the third one is produce strategic intelligent products, right? And for those who are listening on the phone, I'll give you a full read of this one just so you understand. It says, produce strategic intelligence products that leverage law enforcement unique DHS data and intelligence community holdings to facilitate intelligence-driven decision-making by all levels of DHS leadership and other government policymaking and SLTTP partners, and that's the state and local folks and private industry. I summarized all that down, though, really quickly to going, they want to produce strategic intelligent products. Can I help them with that? If I can, I want to be talking about that, then I'll expand on that paragraph. The next one is deliver intelligence community capabilities. So, and this one, it had 2 sections that I really liked, the beginning of the paragraph and the end. So deliver intelligence community capabilities, and then at the bottom, to DHS operational components. And so they'll explain further down what the operational components are, but maybe you think about FEMA or Coast Guard or somebody, right? There's the components within DHS are, I don't know, like 17 different sub-agencies, Secret Service, Coast Guard, FEMA, Customs and Border Protection. So those components need to be getting their actionable information or capabilities from somewhere. They're getting it from these guys. So that's another operating principle. And so the reason I look at that is, can I help you with getting things downstream? Do we have a capability around that line of being able to disseminate stuff? The next one, ensure unique DHS data sets are available. It's pretty straightforward. And for me, I look at that and go, well, am I in the IT side on data analytics, data management, business intelligence, and reporting? Can I grab some of that stuff and really help them with that operating principle? And here, they're not just talking about getting it available within the this organization, this office, or even Homeland Security. They're talking about spreading it across the entire American intelligence community, and not just IC, right? But this means state and local police departments, whoever. And again, you'll read more of it in here if this is your space and you dive in. The sixth one is provide unique, and the way I dropped it down, like I don't care about immigration travel as I analyze this document, right? Provide unique data analytic tools, analysis, and technical infrastructure to assist, the United States, the USG, I can't remember what the heck that was, but, the US government. And, but the big part for me is, can I help providing data or analytic tools, analysis, and technical infrastructure? That's what they're providing. The immigration, travel, and intelligence is just adjectives going into what they want. And so I look at that and say, okay, how can I expand upon that? And I will take this further down in a document. Keep in mind, and let me pause for 1 second, right? This video is not designed to be some sort of social media fun video. I'm trying to teach you how to do your job so that you can win more money, right? How you can do your job so you can help the government accomplish their mission. And it starts with things like this, of doing our homework. So I dive pretty deep into it. Okay, so for the last one, it's invest in our people, continuously enhancing our talent and leadership development. The reason I highlighted those words out of this overall paragraph of the operating principle is because I see it as training, frankly. I'm like, oh, okay, can I help at all with continuously enhancing talent, which is people, and leadership development? Those two worlds. I know I got a friend, Mike Lobby, who does leadership training, right? And so as he looks at this, he might be able to come in and go, look, I'm not in the intelligence sector, but I am in the leadership training. And so you can fit in. Mike fits in with this investing in our people operating principle, and perhaps not producing strategic intelligent products. Okay, so let me just close some of these comments. I think as I, okay, so it's not going down. Let me go to the next page. So that was the operating principles, right? This next page is their mission. And I don't dwell overly long in here. But in here, one of the things I put a note for those of you who are seeing it. So the mission, it talks about equip Homeland Security Enterprise, HSC, right, with timely intelligence and information needed to keep the Homeland safe, secure, and resilient. That's great. And that matters to, you want to be tracking on that if you're going in. But the reason I highlighted it is because this is the first time they're mentioning something where I'm seeing that I should go off page to get even more information. And here they talk about equip the Homeland Security Enterprise. And as you go farther in this document, you'll see how it's a higher up component, and you'll see how it begins to fit together. But if I want to be in this space, if I want to support INA, I'm going to take the time to go figure out what is Homeland Security Enterprise. How can I learn more about their strategic plan? Or, do they feed down? Again, you'll see some of that in this document. But if you actually took the time to go over there to their website, et cetera, you'd learn from that. Okay, so the next thing is their vision. And inside the vision, I labeled out 3 different vision statements. For the people on the phone, the overall vision for IA says, a dominant and superior intelligence enterprise driving intelligence, integration, and information sharing, and delivering unique intelligence and analysis to operators and decision makers at all levels to identify and mitigate threat. So I got rid of the part that talks about the why, right? I'll come back to that. But I'm looking at this vision going, how can I help you with your vision if I'm going that direction? So the first vision statement that I put in is they want to create a superior intelligence enterprise. Gotcha. Like me personally, I have no idea how to create that, but for the people who are in this space, you understand that. The second one is driving intelligence integration. So I'm going to pause for 1 second because it has an and, but driving intelligence integration to me, I look at that and go, how can I help you with data integration, system integration, integration from FBI data or CIA data or the local police department data? How, DHS, I think it was DHS as a whole, but maybe lower down offices, was charged after September 11th with really bringing things together. And in this document, you'll see they talk about that, right? But so driving intelligence integration, I might have experience in other places about full system integration. Could that carry over into the intelligence side? And then the last one is information sharing. That's vital within the mission of these guys, is how do they make sure the people who need to have it are getting it? You'll find this, I think they wrote this in here somewhere, the right people getting the right information at the right time enables them to make the right decisions. And that's the idea behind information sharing. So that's why I highlight it in the mission, or excuse me, in the vision statement. And then the last thing I put down is I just highlighted the overall IA values. They list out these 3, 6, 10 values. And, for those of you on the phone or audio, you can come back and look at them. But the idea is, what I'm trying to communicate here is look at the values and make sure they're aligning to your own values. I don't recommend you change your values, right? You should be, as an organization, shaping what you value. But if you look in here and see what they value, you can tie it together with how you contribute to those values, how you can help if you come on and be part of the team as a contractor or whatever. How will you uphold those values and make sure you're not dragging everybody down, kind of thing. Okay, so now we're moving on to the next page, and this particular part I really liked and I highlighted. This is where they talk about the Homeland strategic environment. And I'm going to read this for a second, and then I want to talk about it, right? The strategic environment for Homeland Security. And the reason I'm reading this and telling you, by the way, is this is the summary statement. This is the most important paragraph of the entire section for Homeland strategic environment. They're telling us what's the environment we're dealing with, right? And so in here it says the strategic environment for Homeland Security includes critical threats from transnational criminal organizations, terrorism, hostile nation states, cyber threats, and emerging disruptive technologies. So INA must continuously adapt, enabling the HSE to comprehensively respond to an evolving threat landscape and focus on a proactive resiliency. Nefarious actors are increasingly capable of penetrating digital and physical borders, threatening the balance of power of the international system, and instantly exploiting power vacuums around the globe. Right? As a side note, this is what DoD CMMC is talking about. We suppliers are kind of at the first, the front lines for potential exploitation. And so the more they protect us with CMMC, the better we are. Well, in this case, these guys are just talking about it at a much broader level. So I wrote down, it's vital that you understand this, right? It's what they're communicating, almost like their elevator pitch, right? They're and again, I'm not trying to summarize for you guys at IA, but for the person who's watching this video and listening to this podcast, I'm just saying, this is what this organization, this agency, this office is telling Congress. What do you guys do? Oh, we do this. There's a lot of threat out there, and we're there to stop it, make sure the world's safer. So the other thing is, you see how large a scope their world is. I used to say this about when I was trying to advocate for small businesses, and I'd meet with a senator and we'd sit down and we'd talk for an hour. And it took me a little while to realize, when I was talking to the senator, and there's only 100 of them, right? When I was talking to the senator, I'm talking to a person who really is responsible for world peace. Each one of those senators has some level of responsibility going together with the president to manage all this stuff that's going on. All I cared about was getting the small business participation up, right? So we got to put ourselves in perspective sometimes. But the other thing is, coming in, this is exactly what an agency wants, is for you to understand how large their scope is, or more importantly, just what is it that we do. So when agencies decide, if you know what they're doing, this is exactly what they're talking about. They talk about the mission, et cetera. And let me just read this last note. Okay, and so then I wrote down a note here. Are you able to operate at that level of urgency? And you need to know that answer and communicate it. This is really important with this particular organization, because they operate at light speed, right? Everything is super critical, super important. I was working with, one way or another, tied back to the President of the United States on a project when I had my last company. And one of the things, one of the commanders involved in our project said, to everybody, I mean, they had like 150 people in a room, there's all this stuff going on. And what he said was, are you operating at our level of urgency? We don't need white papers. We need solutions. We need to be protecting the president or helping the president do whatever the president does. So they, they don't have to worry about this part. They can worry about, their own day's activities, et cetera. But that line that stuck with me is, do you understand our level of urgency? We're at this level of urgency. When you're supporting, again, let's go back to hiking trails in the national park, which I really appreciate, right? I appreciate what DOI does, the federal government does to give us these parks. But the sense of urgency for a hiking trail is not even close to this, because you can just close the hiking trail down for the year and say, hey, we're letting it regrow. But over here, you can't say, oh, we're going to avoid cyber security threats or something. So understand whatever agency you're supporting, understand their sense of urgency level. Okay, let me go to the next page. So the page before this, strategic environment, and this next page lay out what those strategic environments are. I'm not going into them, but except to tell you, understand what these are, right? When I come through here, and I've learned a lot now about the intelligence community just through this, but understand what these threats are and which ones you might be able to contribute to most. Okay, so I'm on to page 6 here, and this is where it starts getting fun for me. Inside of here, they lay out different goals. So there's foundational mission goals, and then as you move forward, I can't remember what they're called. They're like strategic goals or something, and we'll get back to them in a second, but they tie together. So foundational mission goals are the ones that are like overarching for this office at IA, right? So let me read this for the folks who are on the podcast, or those of you watching the video too. The foundational mission goals address the 3 types of intelligence that IA produces: anticipatory, strategic, and operational. And then the other part of this opening paragraph that I put down is, these 3 goals represent IA's central and comprehensive intelligence mission. So when you overarching, what does this group do? This is it, right? This is the intelligence they gather or maintain or whatever. I don't want to overly state it for them, but right here, they're telling you, what do? We do this. In a minute, you're going to see a lot more tactical type goals. But right here, they explained it even more with anticipatory intelligence. It's addressing new and emerging trends, changing conditions, and underappreciated developments, right? And so can you help in that area? When you're looking at this, whatever the work is, whether it's, again, the medical side, construction, professional services, whatever, they'll put out strategic documents like this. They'll identify these core high-level goals. Do you fit into the anticipatory intelligence if you're in this space, right? Strategic intelligence addresses issues of enduring national security. Do you know what enduring national security is, right? If you're in construction, we don't need to know that as much, but if you're in the intelligence world, you need to know what it is, so it ties back together. By the way, let me pause 1 second and say, this is not vital for you going after the next subcontractor, going after the next $250,000 contract, right? It's vital for when you get to know a primary agency. Absolutely don't try to absorb this type of information for more than one agency, right? Even within Department of Homeland Security, if you tried to do this for the Coast Guard and for FEMA, they're entirely 2 different organizations with so much to learn. I'm talking to you as a small who's under $10 million a year, let's say. Take one agency and dive deep into it. As you go forward and you have a strong core competency, let's say in intelligence, you'll be able to maybe piggyback into the other agencies later on. But this helps you move forward. Okay, so let me move on. So coming back to foundational mission goals, I'm going to go through these 3, but the only thing I really want to point out is that for each one of these mission goals, you'll see anticipatory intelligence. It lays out a specific goal and 3 objectives. I'm not going to go into what those are. I'm not going to read them, but you can read them yourself. But when I go through a document like this, my first pass is always skimming it pretty fast to go, okay, what do I got? What's my landscape? What am I looking at that's important to them? And these sections here where it says goal and then has objective, those are really helpful to you, because like here, just for the folks who aren't reading it, an example of the goal is identify new trends and changing conditions to alert customers and prepare for emergency threat or emerging threats to the U.S. Homeland, right? That's the overall goal. And the objective, kind of the way they measure whether they're reaching that goal. An example number 2 is increase subject matter expertise and tradecraft to generate new insights and address intelligence analytics and collection gaps, right? So when you look at that, can I help? Can I fit into that objective? I've done this with, an example is The SBA is somebody I try to really track the vision they're setting and their strategy, right? And so I'll look at their stuff, and at certain points, they'll have strategic goals and objectives that are along the lines of financing small businesses. Well, that's not my world. I don't play in that space. Somebody else does. And so I just exit out on the strategic document and I move on. When I go in and talk to the SBA or whoever, I can say, look, you're really trying to do this, and goal number 3, objective 4 and 5, I can fit there, and I'd like to talk to you about it. That's what I'm trying to get out of this, these strategic documents when I look at it. Okay, and then, so the other thing I wrote here is keep in mind these documents are very useful in giving you the exact language you should use in your marketing material, such as your small business profile, your capability statement, briefing, responses, etc. And I don't mean cut and paste, right? I don't mean plagiarize. It's the idea, one of the worst things the government hates from us in the industry is if we just regurgitate back to them. What they want to know is that you read what they have and you have your own writing of how you will help them do what they're trying to do. Well, in this case, though, what I'm trying to communicate in this bottom paragraph of this first goal is that they write a lot of good language. And so first and foremost, make sure you're paying attention to the keywords they use. Let me use an example of something that I might look at. Okay, here they talk about identify emerging issues surrounding intelligence gaps and conflicting information. Cope with high degrees of uncertainty. I believe you should be saying cope with high levels of uncertainty. Somehow you should be looking at that and saying that's either some type of phrase you're putting in, or maybe you call it out from their strategic document and say, here's how we can help you deal with those high degrees of uncertainty, et cetera. So you're not trying to just say, this is what we do. You're saying, I understand that's your challenge. Here's our response. But this stuff is gold because they're telling you what's there. Okay, so strategic intelligence is the second one. Same thing, you'll see goal 1.2 in here and 3 objectives. You go to the next page, you'll see operational intelligence and goal 1.3, and you'll see 3 objectives in here. And just restating this is some of the most valuable stuff too, is that these goals and objectives will help you identify where you fit in to a particular office, agency, department, et cetera's environment. Okay, so let's go to the next one here. Okay, so I talked about you had I think it was functional mission goals, foundational mission goals, sorry for the fast scrolling, but foundational mission goals as an entity, right? This is what our overall goals. Now I'm gonna come down and talk about topical mission goals. And so topical means, like Rihanna's got a new song out. It's topical, right? The Super Bowl's coming out. That's topical. Well, in the INA world, the information world here, so what they say is the topical mission goals focus on the enduring threats to the homeland. Let's just pause there for a second. And for those of you in the podcast, I left out one part of that sentence. It says the topical mission goals supported by the foundational mission goals focus on the enduring threats to the homeland. So forget about that middle part. Anytime you see commas, throw it out for a second and capture the end and the beginning. And you'll see the topical mission goals focus on the enduring threats to the homeland. What are the enduring threats to the homeland, right? And so here they talk about these 5 goals below represent INA's partners and customers' most significant needs. This is where they're telling you about the challenges that they face. What are they trying to get done? Their mission from a topical standpoint. And for those of you on the podcast, I'll just read the 5 topical mission goals for this office are counterintelligence, counterterrorism, cyber, economic security, and transnational organized crime, right? So they lay out their 5 topical mission goals. And as you look at this stuff, you'll just understand, can you fit into this world? If you can't, but you want to serve this office, it's good that you at least just understand what's there. I often say about small businesses or industry, in fact, that our job is not to address the mission goals. Our job is to sit there and make it so easy for Homeland Security to address the mission goals, right? They've got people in here on the analysis side and the operations side who can make this, execute on the mission. We come in there and help them execute on the mission. Obviously, there's some, flair to that. But okay, so let's go through how I look at the topical mission goals. Same way it's laid out, you're going to see on every single page where it talks about counterintelligence, for example, as a topical mission goal, that it has a goal statement and it has objective statements. In here, because, and this is my opinion, right? Because it's more real world tactical, there's more objectives. They know more about what they're trying to get, and not know more, they probably know more everywhere, right? They're able to just list out more objectives that'll help them achieve that goal. And so in here, as you look at the goals, you want to pay attention to it. So one of the things, every goal that you see in here generally starts with some summary paragraph or opening paragraph. And you want to look at that and pull things out. I looked at this entire paragraph, and it's about 1,000 characters, maybe 1,500 characters. And so some of the things that pop out to me is rapid technological advances, right? It's funny, I had comments in here. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. But anyways, so rapid technological advances are in there. How can I help with technological advances? There's some other stuff that I bypass for a second because it's important, but it's, to me, as I analyze, it's less of the first thing I need to pay attention to. But then there's another sentence that I really like towards a summary of this, or the end of this. I&A will drive innovative counterintelligence solutions, integrate counterintelligence responses into department business practices, effectively resource programmatic efficiencies. And so when I look at those things, can I help with them driving innovation, right? I might not be on the intelligence side, but I can help them with the solutions of the process. They want to integrate. This goes back to integrating responses into business practices, right? Do you have an expertise around that? And understanding this helps me understand where I might fit in. And that's why I tell you, this is where it could help you understand where you fit in. So just look for those kind of key words when you're reading a strategic document. Again, I highlight certain things in here. And so objective 3, as I read all these objectives, one that popped out for me was the operationalize DHS data sets using data as a service. So data as a service was such a great one, because that's, you can own that particular vertical, or that space might be yours, right? But DHS data sets, part of what I would want to be looking at if I'm trying to do business in there is, what are the data sets? If you've never heard me talk about how I do selling, I follow an old model called spin selling, and it's basically questions, right? And spin is SPIN, and situational questions, problem questions, implication questions, and needs payoff. But the part I want to talk about is situational questions are facts, right? How many users do you have? Are you using Microsoft or Oracle? Things like that. Is you're building 1,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet? Anything that's factual, you try to get from any other source that you can. But some of those questions you'll want to find out. And so a data set where it talks about operationalize DHS data set, it allows me to understand that I need to know what those data sets are if I want to work with these guys. If I think I can help them on the data as a service side, I'm going to need to learn that information. Okay, so let's come down. The goal 2, I just highlighted it for counterterrorism, but again, it's got a goal and objectives. Goal 3 for cyber has goals and objectives. You'll see the same pattern. Inside of economic security, I saw something that popped up as I was reading the opening paragraph there, and it says, DHS has a role in identifying fraudulent trade activities, retaliatory trade practices, the evasion of custom enforcement, and the circumvention of financial sanctions. And I think one of the reasons I wrote this down, let me just make sure I did have a comment. Yeah. One of the reasons I wrote it down is because Tommy Duncan is a friend of mine. He's got a business, and he does this exact, well, not exact, but he definitely monitors for mortgage fraudulent activity. I don't want to read into Tommy's business, but basically he can help banks and the government save money by making sure they're tracking on the mortgages. Well, if he's trying to expand his business and you begin to look at this, is there some way that Tommy might be able to fit into it? So if he's scrolling through a strategic document like this, you want to be finding stuff that's in here quickly that's relevant to what your company does. Now, in this particular case, Tommy might not pursue it because it's a whole intelligence world, and maybe it's farther outside of where he wants to be compared to like the SBA finances or HUD, HHS. Okay, so that's just something that popped out. I like that. Again, goals and objectives. You see that. Next page here, there's goals and objectives. Well, I'll try not to repeat it too much. All right, I'm on to my 3rd set of goals, which I really, really like. This is what I meant, is this strategic document is one of the best ones I've seen because they keep going around. First, they talked about what do they do, the goals surrounding, the overall mission of their organization, right? Of INA, excuse me. But as they went through, then they talked about tactical things, Here's ones that are topical. And then now we're moving into enterprise. And to me, these enterprise goals are about how, as an organization, can they improve, right? One was about intelligence. Now I'm moving into one that's about what I just loosely call business process improvement, right? So let's take a look at this because there's so much in here. This one here where it talks about the 8 enterprise goals focus on the mission and business practice of INA, right? Right there, now I'm getting excited because I didn't think I could help INA with their intelligence goals. That's not really my world, but I'm sure a business process person, and you might be. So you begin to look at this and go, there's an opening. Are the goals going to match what I do? Okay, so Homeland Security, Enterprise, Analytics, and Collection Activities. So now they're laying out what these, I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 goals. So these 8 enterprise goals. The first one is Homeland Security, Enterprise Analytics, or Analytic and Collection Activities. And so that one I clicked on because, sorry, I put a content in. So I just quickly look at these goals. That's the comment I made for those of you watching the video. I quickly look at these and go, which ones pop into where I want to play? If I was thinking about something, I might do, one of my favorite things is process improvement, right? So business functions at the bottom, but information and sharing. I built tons of collaboration solutions in my last company where I was doing that stuff. So I can pop in, and you should do the same thing. Come down here and look at these goals. Homeland Security, Enterprise, Analytic, and Collection Activities, the integration of personnel, partnerships, sharing and safeguarding people. You can see privacy, civil liberties, and transparency. You'll see as I go down. But if you're an EEO counselor, right, or somebody in that space for equal opportunity, there's an opportunity here for you to be able to help them with their enterprise goals. You need to dig further to see what it is and decide whether you want to pursue. Okay, so let me, one of the other things I do when I'm coming down and I'm quickly analyzing the document and trying to, have things pop out to me, I look at a particular enterprise goal, Homeland Security, Enterprise Integration of Personnel, and then I try to understand, what are the couple of words that pop out. So that goal is about building professionals. There's another goal that's farther down that says people seek to develop collaborative and unified organization where ideas and people are respected. So these two are kind of related in the sense that one is about building well-rounded intelligence professionals, people in that skill. And the other goal is about developing the collaborative approach that people in the organization will follow and creating a unified organization. So one's more about the intelligence, one's more about bringing it together. And again, I'm not trying to say specifically on these guys, but when you look at that, you're like, all right, there's space for me because I'm in that world. I can help these guys with that goal. Same thing coming down, right? Partnership, I see the word collaboration. And when you read more about what partnership means to them, it's all over the country. It's everywhere. And so if you've got some sort of approach or proven experience around maybe how you do interagency collaboration, or an example is FEMA, I think, puts out a lot of money, manages a lot of money, and HUD does too, downstream into state and local governments, local police departments, et cetera. Well, that's a massive activity of integration and communication. If that's a space you played in, just not in this intelligence world, this INA world, well, you can come over here and say, we've done that, and you can know that you can help them. You can see as I went down, I just highlighted it. People is about develop a collaborative and unified organization. Protect U.S. values and enhance accountability is under the goal, privacy, civil liberties, and transparency. One of the things I like here is technological innovation, increase information access and data resiliency. So, if you're in the IT space, what can you do to help them with that? Here they're asking for you to come in and be innovative. Okay, let's pop down to the next slide here. 17. This is good material for me. I love doing this for the folks I work with. But now we blow through a lot of pages because I'm not going to go over them at this level. But each one of those goals, I think I said 8 or 10, each one of those now is then also telling you, here's a specific goal and a set of objectives. I might grab one as we go along just to read it for the folks on the podcast. But okay, so here's a statement. INA will lead the effort to implement effective tools. All right, what tools are they talking about? Where are they looking at? This is Homeland Security Enterprise Integration of Personnel. That's the goal. right? The enterprise goal. If I look at the statement for the goal, it says create and implement synchronized approaches to improve the skills and integration of Homeland Intelligence professionals. Okay, like how do we get rocking and rolling, right? And I'm looking at some of these goals. So some of these goals I ignore, right? And I wanted to share that with you because this is how, if I was in your shoes and I'm trying to analyze this for what I do. But the first goal says basically increase exchange of personnel. I'm not going to have anything to do with that. That's not my world. The second one is objective on this goal is develop DHS Intelligence career roadmaps. That's still not my world, but if you're in there in your experience of developing roadmaps and helping people navigate their careers, that might be a good spot for you, but I skip it. The third objective in here for the integration of personnel is establish additional opportunities for IE personnel to provide career development opportunities. So basically just expansion on the roadmap where if you're going to lay out a roadmap, make sure the steps in the roadmap are there. And to me, that's what that third objective kind of lays into, not my space. And then the fourth one, optimize intelligence training to minimize redundancy and ensure employees obtain common foundational intelligence training at every level of their career, creating an agile intelligence workforce. Long story short, I'm in training. That fits perfectly for me, right? I'm not in training, right? That's not my world. But if I was looking at these things, the first few just were outside my world. But when I look at that fourth one, I'm like, we do training. How can I get in there? By the way, this is something that if you're teaming up with another small business or even a large prime, they would appreciate you knowing about this organization and knowing where you fit in, compared to just saying, hey, I want to be on the team, coming in and saying, hey, I can fit with this goal and there's this opportunity and it ties back to this goal. You know, you begin to put the pieces together. Let's go on down. So I'm going to skip through these just to see if I highlighted any. This one, information sharing and safeguarding. When I was reading the opening paragraph, again, things popped out and I highlighted them. This is where they talk about the right people getting the right information at the right time to inform decision-making. That statement has been around forever, decades and decades and decades, and it's still relevant. Frankly, this is what I'm hoping with you, right? If you're the right people getting the right information, how do I analyze a strategic document at the right time now, right before the fourth quarter, so you can go after end of the year spending or something, to inform decision-making, meaning do I go after this agency or do I move on to another agency or another office because this one's not really a match for what we do, right? So that's really important. And then the other one is that I highlight is information that is better organized into appropriate data formats and tagged metadata. The reason I put that down is it's just something in the opening paragraph, but my last company, that was my sweet spot, right? Managing data, the findability of data, searchability, organizing the data, records management, right? All of that fit in. And so when I see this, I'm like, oh, there's something for me in this information sharing goal. Let me explore the goal. And then I would dive into this further. Okay, so I'm going to keep going through. Next one is the same thing with people, right? When I look at the people goal, I see in the opening paragraph, a professional, trusted, agile, and well-led workforce. You know, what does that mean? It'd be great to go in and talk to the people who are in charge of this particular goal. Again, let me pause for a second. When you have a strategic document like this and you have these overall goals, there's often a person or an office tied specifically to that goal who's responsible for the success, right? They don't just put together a strategic document and hope it works at the end. Hope is not a strategy. It is a book, though. So a professional, trusted, agile, and well-led workforce, I would want to be setting up a meeting with somebody who's in charge and say, hey, could you expand on this? And, I was looking at this. That's capture to me. As you get in, you try to learn more about what they're doing. But understanding this right from the beginning and reading it ahead of time will give you the ammunition or the input to create the questions that are intelligent questions when you go in and talk to the government. Okay, so then recruiting, retaining, developing, and motivating employees. Here they're talking about, again, their priorities. And this is something that's important across the board. So it doesn't matter if you're in the intelligence space. If you know how to recruit, retain, develop, and motivate employees, you're golden, right, in this particular goal. I did a video about the Army and some of the important things about the Army's mission for the next 10, 15 years. And a big part of what they said is they want to recruit, retain, develop, and motivate soldiers, right? So everybody has that goal within the federal government. If that's your specialty, now you're seeing where you fit into this particular office's need for that. And then the last thing is critical thinking, effective communication, and data literacy. This to me is a whole separate thing from the recruiting part, and it fits into different people. So you might be more in this space. All right, let's cruise on through. That was the goal. More goals. Each time I go through these goals, you see the same thing. Here, I talked about civil liberties. Uphold American civil liberties and practice transparency. For those of you in the podcast, this is under a goal called privacy, civil liberties, and transparency. And they're talking about how INA will uphold American civil liberties and practice transparency. And I tied it all the way to the end of the opening paragraph by saying to gain the public's trust, right? So again, coming back to how can a strategic document help you write a response? Well, you know, if I just summarize that really quick my way, I'm saying INA wants to uphold American civil liberties and practice transparency in order to gain the public's trust. If I kind of summarize that somewhere and then I expand about how do I contribute to that? How can I help you gain the public's trust, right? Well, we help people uphold American civil liberties this way, blah, 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 right? But you can see these things, they pop up. You don't want to reach for things that are outside your space. That's not how business works, right? But if you know what you do, you know what your core competency is, then you'll be able to analyze a strategic document like this or strategic plan and find the matches for what you do to the need and the goals that they have set. All right, moving on, we're page 23, technological innovation. Here I just saw that they want secure and efficient architectures. So that's really important to find out what architectures they have. And I popped these things out really quick and I said, well, what do they have? And then they also want to keep abreast of current and emerging technologies. And so if I looked at the strategic document and I was thinking about how can I really play in this space, right? I really want to serve the need of this customer and I want to win this customer. And for any of you in the government, this is just how sales happens, right? We want money because that's why we're in business. And that comes from wins. And the way we get wins is by serving your needs. And doing it effectively, not like, we won, but we're understanding your needs. So when I look at this for you in the industry, when I look at this and I see something like keep abreast of current emerging technologies, I want to reach out to whoever's in charge of the technological innovation goal, know who they are, find them on LinkedIn, follow them so I can see what they're posting, see who else is in that space. And then if I'm an expert at keeping people abreast or not keeping them abreast because you need to become an expert at this. But if you're aware of current and emerging technologies as a business, it's your responsibility to be making sure the government is abreast of two things. One is the current and emerging technologies. And the second is that you're the subject matter expert. So if you're putting this out on your website, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever, nowadays buyers are going to find you. The program office who's trying to keep abreast of that will find you. And the other thing is you can go in and begin to ask questions about where are you? What are you looking to move forward on? And if you're in the IT space, this just gives you a lot of good stuff. I can't say this enough. My most favorite thing, if I can say it that way, in a strategic document is when they lay out, here is our goal and here are our objectives for that goal. Now I just need to figure out how can I help you meet that goal? How can I help you with those objectives to meet that goal? All right. The last thing, just on this page, for those of you on the podcast, again, you can't see at the bottom, but this technological innovation goal has a little closing paragraph. And the thing that I liked in there is innovation is critical to DHS's mission. They can say anything else they want, but those 5-6 words, whatever that is, that little beginning part of the sentence is so critical to me because they're telling me they need to be innovative. And if you're tracking anything with DoD's cybersecurity maturity model certification or any of the needs out there about our adversaries, then you understand in today's world, things move massively fast, super fast. And industry is the ones who are going to help the government protect themselves because you're bringing the innovation. The government wants to see your innovation. You just have to tie it together with what they're doing. Okay. The last one is business. I think this is the last one. Business functions is one of the goals, and it says enhance business integration and organizational resiliency. So getting in there and understanding it, implementing industry standards, foster modernization. All these things are keys to what I want to come in and talk to the government about. I want to learn more about what are you thinking, what don't you know. There's things they don't know, and sometimes they can actually communicate it without stating it clearly, but you who are the experts will begin to understand it based on some of the things they they say. And so, this is perfect. And then implementing industry standards. How can they implement industry standards unless we're showing it? So here you can begin to see, well, who can I communicate these standards to? Making sure there's no notes. Oh, that's funny. And so I wrote a note saying, you are the industry. You bring the experience from the outside. That's funny. That can be integrated into IA's needs. So I said it all right, but it's the same thing. Each one of these goals, as you look through, don't just casually read a document like this. This is the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, right? They're telling you what they need. All right, let's move on to the last couple of pages. We're out of the goals. They've told us what their challenges are, what their needs are. Here they're telling us a little bit about where do they fit into the intelligence community. So I had said this before, INA is the only IC agency charged with delivering intelligence to our state, local, tribal, territorial, and private sectors, and also getting intelligence from them. So they send stuff downstream and they gather it and bring it back. These are the guys who, the office that puts it all together, and they have a responsibility for doing that. A lot of the other intelligence community agencies and organizations touch on it, but these are the guys regulated to do that. Okay, and then the other thing it says on here that was important for me to note was that INA has a vast network of state, local, tribal, territorial, private sector partners. And so you hear that acronym put in there. It's funny the acronym's not here, but it's that SLTTP, TTP. Anyways, what that tells me, though, is there's such a big world that they're playing in, and it's not just about intelligence. It's about communication. It's about collaboration. Efficiencies. How can you help in that world? Those business services are just as important as the intelligence side. And in here, they're kind of sharing that. I'm not going to go into this graph, but this graph is nice in the sense that over on the bottom left, I think, where'd I go? Yeah, Homeland Security on the bottom, on the left-hand side, Homeland Security is about the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock spot. And it shows they have 2 of the 17 agencies. And then you begin to see the rest. DOD obviously has a ton. This is important just so you can kind of understand the big world. And if I take a quick sidestep, it's important for you to pick one. Pick one, get good, make $5 or $10 million at it, which is proving your expertise at it within the federal government. Then go knock on all the other doors. But if you try to knock on all 17 doors, you'll not make money. It's just too confusing. It's overwhelming. And everybody will know you're trying to date 17 agencies instead of one. Okay, so this one's really cool too, because you hear about how it is on the outside. And now here we're talking about INA within the DHS Intelligence Enterprise. It's important, understanding where it fits. Speaking the language when you go in and have meetings is all really good stuff. So the Office of Intelligence and Analysis partners with the DHS Intelligence Enterprise. Okay, that tells me right there I need to go find out what is the DHS Intelligence Enterprise. And fortunately for me, there's a picture down below, but it's basically intelligence offices from the other components within DHS. I think there's 17 components in here, but only these guys are part of it formally, and that makes up the intelligence enterprise. Anyways, and then the other thing here, I noticed that it says Homeland Security Intelligence Council. I don't know what that is, but it's one of those things that is serves as a stepping off point. So you can look at that and say, well, now let me go look at the Homeland Security Intelligence Council and understand what that stuff is. Here it's got the DHS Chief Intelligence Officer. Who is that? What do they do, right? How do I learn from them? Do they put out documents on a regular basis or information that could be valuable to us as we're moving forward? Can I better understand how to share my content to them through what they're sharing? These things are designed. The other thing to keep in mind is if you focus on an agency, it's not hard to become an expert at what they do. Because, let's say you take, I just did this document, right? Let's say I did 1 hour of reading it and writing a LinkedIn post where I summarized it all. And then I did another hour trying to prepare for this video to get it for you and understand what I want to highlight. That took me 2 hours. And, so say it takes you 16 hours for you to look at a document like this, understand who they are, reference a couple other documents. If you're trying to go into an agency and win $1 million or a $5 or a $10 million contract from them, investing 40 hours to really understand them is not a hard sell to you, right? So take the time to do that. Don't go down a rabbit hole, right? Don't let yourself get lost, but understand the core documents that communicate what the agency's challenges and goals are. That's really important. Okay, and then I think we might be on the last, or close to the last page. Oh, again, here's another part I love, is they're talking about aligning IA's strategic plan. And it's funny, and I wrote my favorite part of any document is the reference material, right? There used to be these book series, there still is, it's called like the Dummy's Guide to Philosophy, or the Dummy's Guide to Politics, or whatever. And the reason I loved it is, first, it was dumbed down so I could understand anything. You know, here's physics. But the other thing is, here's the top 10 recommendations for what to read next. This isn't quite the same thing, but you see how all the documents fit together. Down here at the bottom, almost at the bottom, is the IA strategic plan, which we're reviewing. You can see how the inputs, what drove the creation of the strategic plan, came out of higher up documents, the National Security Strategy document, right? And I put these documents out there actually in other posts, and you can find them. But the National Security Strategy leads into the Departmental Strategic Guidance and the National Intelligence Strategy. Those two documents then lead into the IA Strategic Plan, which then feeds into Departmental Intelligence Strategic Guidance and Annual Budget Requests. So when you look in there and you see what they're trying to do and the money they're asking for, things like that, it comes right back up to the strategy they have set. So this is really cool too. And when I talk about documents, if you have a general understanding of the input documents and a pretty detailed understanding of whatever's below this strategic plan, you know, you'll be in a really good position to start knocking on the door. If you have a strong core competency, then you have a reason to be there. Okay, and then here they loosely talk about implementing the IA strategic plan, but they also talk about other documents that they'll have to do that. So IA will integrate the goals and objectives into other strategies and plans written using the Undersecretary's authority. So for me, I'm like, what other strategy? What other plans? I will tell you, sometimes, frankly, I've gone and talked to agencies who have a strategic document, and people in the agency aren't aware of it as much. You know, so sometimes you got to dig and you got to find the right people. But I guarantee you, if you find the people who are responsible for the goals here, you will begin to learn and be able to contribute to that agency's mission, or in this case, DHS's. But okay, so here it says implementation. I wrote, you know, go find this, is what I was just saying. But you can begin to pursue this, right? I was saying that you're probably not going to find the implementation plans too easily because, you know, then the bad guys are getting it. Let me close that one. I said that. So then the other thing, it says performance evaluation. This is really important in the strategic plan. In here, IA says they're going to monitor implementation through gathering and analyzing performance metrics on a regular basis. What I want to know is, what are those performance metrics, and how do I get a copy of that evaluation? Because when you look at an evaluation like that, hey, here's what we're doing, and here's the things we're hoping to figure out a solution to, or we're having challenges trying to implement or come up with a solution to, you begin to really see where you can help them. So understanding some of those other, finding some of those other documents that are publicly available is important. You might have to do a request to them and to the right person, but again, that's part of just doing your homework. Okay, so let me close that one and let me put that one in. So anyways, the strategic plan and the implementation is really important. You want to know how they're implementing it, because that's how you get into it. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to page 1 here really quick and try to do a summary. I guess I could have found an easier way than scrolling. Let me get back up here, because this is a good place for me to stop. The reason for this video, and I just want to bring it back again, is to walk you through how I analyze a strategic plan. They're not the most exciting things for the average person. People like me who like to read like unrelated stuff get excited for the weird reasons. But the reality is, you need to do this. If you want to succeed in federal government contracting, part of it is doing your homework, understanding what their mission is, what their challenges are, and the goals they've set for themselves, the objectives that they'll try to achieve to meet those goals. If you take the time to read this strategic plan, or download strategic plans that are related to the agency you want to pursue, whether it's Department of Education or HHS, et cetera, you'll see them lay out their plans the same way. I think I'll put out more videos like this, so definitely follow on YouTube. I am asking you to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my favorite spot. Most importantly, when you give it a thumbs up on LinkedIn, it gets shared out to your entire connection. Other people become aware of these documents. And it takes me actually more time to find documents than it does to analyze them. So if you're able to share them out to others in the industry by just giving it a thumbs up, that's really helpful towards my overall mission of just raising the tide of small business maturity. Hope you found this valuable. I'm going to post it on YouTube, like I mentioned, for those of you who are listening on podcast. If you want the actual strategic plan PDF, obviously you can go find it on DHS's site somewhere. I can't remember where. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn and download it. I have put it there. And actually in that post, I also put the link to the Intelligence and Analysis Office's website. I think I have that in there as well. So hope you found it valuable. That concludes this video.